Welcome back to the Making International Law in Korea video series. In this video, I'll be explaining to you on maritime boundary and overlapping claims area. The Republic of Korea delimited boundary of a continental shelf and some waters of the East China Sea through an agreement concerning the establishment of boundary in the northern part of the continental shelf adjacent to two countries between the Korea and Japan in 1974, and could not make any maritime boundary agreements with China and Japan. The Korea-China held 14 times of Director General level talks from 1996 to 2008, but failed to reach a consensus. The Korea-China joint statement by the two leaders agreed that both formally operate the maritime boundary delimitation negotiations on July 3, 2014. The first official meeting for delimitation of maritime boundaries between Korea and China was held in Korea on December 22, 2015. Korea and China have agreed to hold the vice minister level talk between the both countries once a year, and to carry out Director General level consultations and the expert subcommittees in together. In accordance with the items of the understanding of the first formal meeting, the first Director General level talks were held in Beijing, in China, in April 22, 2016, and the second Director General level talk were held in Busan, Korea from 2021 December 2016. The Korea and Japan concurred and conducted 11 times of Director General level talk between 1996 and year 2000. Through this meeting, the two countries discussed the scope, principle, and method of maritime delimitation. The Japan insists that median line between Ulleungdo and Dokdo should be the boundary of the exclusive economic zone between both countries. On the other hand, Dokdo might be used as a starting point in the maritime delimitation. The territorial issue concerning Dokdo may arise. Therefore, Korea claimed that the median line between Korea's Ulleungdo and Japan's Oki Island should be the exclusive economic zone boundary between two countries. Article 4 of the Territorial Sea Continental Zone Act of the Korea provides that the delimitation of territorial sea and continental zone between Korea and the state with adjacent and opposite the coast shall, unless otherwise agreed between the state concerned, shall be the median line joining every point of which is equidistant from the nearest point on the baselines from which the breadth of the territorial sea of each of the two states is measured. Article 2, Paragraph 3 of the Act on the Exclusive Economic Zone and Continental Shelf of Korea stipulates that the delimitation of the exclusive economic zone and continental shelf between Korea and the state with opposite or adjacent coast shall be established by agreement with the relevant state on the basis of international law. Meanwhile, Article 5, Paragraph 2 of the Act on the Exclusive Economic Zone and Continental Shelf explain that the Korea shall not exercise its rights in its exclusive economic zone under Article 3 in the area beyond the median line between Korea and the relevant state unless agreed separately between the relevant state and Korea. Accordingly, Republic of Korea minimized maritime conflict with the related countries by restraining the exercise of its sovereign rights and jurisdiction to the waters outside the median line in the overlapping areas. The intent to fulfill its obligation not to jeopardize or hamper with reaching a final agreement during a transitional period in accordance with the Articles 74 and 83 of the UNCLOS. However, such restrained measure should not be interpreted that Korea sees its maritime boundary as a median line. Korea respects the three-step approach of drawing a provisional line and adjusting or moving it with taking into account the relevant circumstances based on the UNCLOS and the international precedents in the case of a maritime boundary delimitation. Let me talk about maritime delimitation between Korea, China, and the Yellow Sea. The Yellow Sea, sometimes called the West Sea, is a semi-enclosed body of water measuring about 520 nautical miles from north and to south, and about 380 nautical miles from east to west. The total area covered by the Yellow Sea is about 400,000 square kilometers, with the average depth is 55 meters, and the maximum depth was 125 meters. This section focuses on the unresolved maritime boundary between Korea and China, which has both ratified the 1982 United Nations Convention Law of the Sea. Article 57 of the Law of the Sea authorizes each coastal state to declare the exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles from the coast or from baselines from which the breadth of territorial sea is measured. But because the Yellow Sea is less than 400 nautical miles wide, none of the coastal states can declare full zones, and their claimed eases overlap. The extent of the overlap is exacerbated by arguably excessive strait baselines that have been claimed by the coastal states. Because Yellow Sea is rich in natural resources with the capacity for year-round fishing and estimates oil reserve that may contain up to 10 billion barrels of oil, it has been difficult for coastal countries to agree on the maritime delimitation. Tensions over these resources endanger security in Northeast Asia, and conflicts are likely to continue as long as the region's maritime boundaries remain unresolved. South Korea and China have had an accord relationship during previous centuries, but they are cooperating economically at present, and it should be possible for these two important countries to reach an agreement on the maritime boundary delimitation of the Yellow Sea. South Korea has maintained since the 1960s that most equitable approach to the maritime delimitation in the Yellow Sea is to utilize the equidistance principle, whereby the exclusive economic zone of South Korea and China would be delimited at the median line. This position is somewhat inconsistent with South Korea's approach toward its boundary dispute with Japan in the East China Sea, where South Korea argued for the natural prolongation approach, but South Korea explained that the difference by referring to the goal of the limitations which are to reach an equitable result. Chinese approach toward the delimitation also has its inconsistencies because it favors the natural prolongation theory in the Yellow Sea dispute with South Korea, but maintain the equidistance line should be divided in the boundary with North Korea in the Gulf of Korea and with Vietnam in the Gulf of Tonkin. Perhaps most importantly, the natural prolongation approach does not appear to apply in any significant geographical way to the Yellow Sea because, unlike the East China Sea, where the seabed drops off sharply at the Okinawa Trough near the Japanese island, the Yellow Sea has a very flat, shallow, and relatively featureless seafloor throughout. The sediments do not shift dramatically from clay to sand, but instead make a gradual transition, and the sea includes areas where the sediment mix.